Welcome, everyone. We're going to have a quick call-in show because big news just hit. The Big Ten just released the the scheduling for 2024 and 2025. So I have here with me Matt Zemek from Trojan's Wire to break it down for you guys, how this is going to impact USC, how it's going to impact the Big Ten. Matt, thanks for being here. How you doing?
I am a busy boy. It feels like September with all the writing that I've had to do the past 3 hours. It feels like a game day. It feels like having that kind of a workload again in early June. So, hey, lots to talk about, lots to write about. It almost feels like the regular season. And I know that we had this USC recruiting rush. That was also hugely busy Sunday night, Monday morning. But this feels like even more because there's so much information to digest here. So exciting times. And it also feels like the first day of USC's Big Ten era. Now, that doesn't become official until July 2024. But, in many ways, people will say, well, today's the day this guy became president. Today's the day USC joined the Big Ten in a larger sense.
Yeah. And I was talking to our buddy, Rick, LBC Trojan, about just this. We've been hearing about this stuff for a while, right? We've been hearing it in the news, talking about it, but now we actually see it on paper, right? We're seeing the schedule on the internet. We're actually seeing the opponents, which is bringing everything really home and making it real, for Rick and myself. So let's take a look at it. You ready?
Absolutely.
All right. So here is the 2024 conference opponents for the Big Ten.
Yeah, so, hey, for USC fans looking along here at the Voice of College Football, you can read the schedules just as well as I can. And so I think a natural, obvious first point to look at, how does USC's schedule compare to Michigan? How does it compare to Ohio State? And just looking at these schedules for USC, Michigan, and Ohio State, pretty similar. Now, of course, USC, where USC's 2024 schedule is going to be tougher than Michigan and Ohio State's schedule. It's not in the Big Ten. It's out of conference because USC is playing LSU and Notre Dame. And so you stack that on top of the Big Ten schedule with Michigan, with Wisconsin on the USC slate. And so the degree of difficulty for USC comes from the non-con. But if you're just measuring the 9 Big Ten conference games, it's actually pretty even. And of course, there's one edge just within the parameters of the 9 Big Ten games. The one edge that USC has, Michigan and Ohio State have to play each other. And USC only plays Michigan. It's going to play Ohio State in 2025. So that is a significant edge. If you're just comparing Big Ten standings and the odds of making the Big Ten championship game in 2024, that's a little check mark in USC's favor. That Michigan and Ohio State have to play each other, so one of them is guaranteed to lose. And this brings up the larger point, everybody. You all probably know it, but it's just worth saying for the sake of clarity, making sure everyone knows, no divisions in the Big Ten in 2024. Getting rid of the Big Ten East, Big Ten West, and they're not going back to legends and leaders either. It's now, this is a pure Big Ten in the sense that it's just the top 2 teams go to Indianapolis, Lucas Oil Stadium for the Big Ten championship game. And so USC doesn't play both Michigan and Ohio State next year. Michigan and Ohio State do have to play each other. So Michigan has to play USC and Ohio State. So at this point, I'm not talking about teams. I'm not talking about rosters. Strictly based on the schedule, slight lean toward Ohio State and USC getting the better end of the schedules just among those 3 teams. Now, some other broad schedule notes that y'all need to be aware of. One is that because of the elimination of divisions, that's going to mean a few things for several Big Ten programs. And the most high-profile Big Ten program to come out as a winner, to come out ahead in all of this, Penn State, because Penn State would have to play Michigan and Ohio State every year in the Big Ten East. So now in the divisionless format, Penn State, Ohio State is not a regular game, at least not in this 2-year window. So Penn State gets a little bit of relief not having to play both Michigan and Ohio State. So James Franklin is absolutely elated about that. Another Big Ten team to get a break. And again, it's in the East, right? Like these are the teams that they don't have to play the Michigan-Ohio State double stack automatically. Now, some years they will, but not always. So they're getting a breather in that regard. Maryland gets a softer schedule. Maryland gets a little bit more balance into its Big Ten slate. We'll see what Mike Loxley can do at Maryland. And then another intriguing piece of this schedule, and we'll explain the nuances as we go along, Tim, and everyone else who's watching. But there was debate about which format the Big Ten would use, and one of the formats which was discussed as an obvious candidate in terms of the format for the Big Ten schedule was the 3-6-6 plan, and that's easy enough to grasp. You have a 16-team conference with USC and UCLA now in the mix, so that means you're playing 15 other teams. So you divide that 15 up into 3 permanent annual opponents. You rotate 6 and 6 every other year so that you're playing every team every other year in the Big Ten. Now, this schedule, which is called Flex Protect Plus, it has the 3-6-6 plan's central component, which is you're going to play every school every other year. And so it keeps that component in. But it deviates from the 3-6-6 plan because it's not a uniform plan in terms of everyone having 3 permanent opponents, 3 also called protected opponents. That number varies. Some are going to have 1, and USC is an example of one of those teams. USC has just 1 protected fixed annual opponent. That, of course, is UCLA. But Iowa has 3 protected opponents. And if you've been following our coverage at Trojans Wire, we talked to Hawkeyes Wire before this schedule announcement, put up a little short post about this. And the people in Iowa, before this Big Ten schedule was revealed, they told us, we don't care what the Big Ten schedule does as long as we get to play Nebraska, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. We want those guys. We want those rivalries to be permanent, fixed. And that's exactly what Iowa got. And so it reveals really, I think, a lot of savvy on the part of the Big Ten and its new commissioner, taking over for Kevin Warren, that, we don't have to lock everyone into a fixed schedule. And not everyone has to have 3 fixed opponents. Like, if you're going to give Rutgers to some other Big Ten school as a fixed opponent every year, like that's a built-in schedule advantage. So Rutgers has only Maryland as a protected opponent. So that makes sense, right? You don't want to have Rutgers as an annual opponent for some teams because that right there is an imbalance in the schedule. So people will say, well, wait, why do you have 1 protected opponent for some, 3 protected opponents for Iowa? That's an imbalance. Well, but that imbalance actually creates balance, because you're not feeding the Rutgers and Maryland and Indiana to a lot of teams. You're limiting the extent to which those will be fixed opponents. Like, you don't want the lower end opponents in the Big Ten to be playing the higher end opponents every year. So you don't want to have as many fixed games. And the other thing about all this is that, why USC and UCLA just have each other as a protected fixed annual opponent, other Big Ten schools now are not locked into as many flights to Los Angeles, on a regular basis. This will create flexibility in terms of the travel, in terms of the logistics, in terms of the television scheduling. So that's another reason why USC has just UCLA as a protected opponents. So in many ways, what seems like imbalance on the surface actually creates balance and flexibility throughout the new 16-team Big Ten that we're going to see next year.
Yeah, and I do agree with you. Your breakdown of the schedules as it's looking in Michigan and USC and Ohio State. But one thing to remember is we're talking 2024 here, and a lot can change really quickly between how tough these schedules look and how difficult they are once this game is actually played. I'm looking right at, Penn State's been trending up and they've been playing really well. And with Olar, who knows, right? He'll be like a third year. Is that correct? He'll be a junior, right? He's not draft eligible, is he?
Well, I mean, he's been buried behind Sean Clifford. So, I would say that, if he has a breakout year, that might lead him to go pro. But if he doesn't have like a superstar year, he's probably a 2-year player, I would imagine.
And so he can get up tough quick. And we'll also look at maybe what Fickle could do in Wisconsin, right? And Rule in Nebraska. We're looking at the schedule and we're looking at those hard teams. We might also be blindsided by, Iowa turning things around. Who knows who their offensive coordinator might be in a couple of years with that defense. All they really need is just to fix that offense, and they're going to be all of a sudden be a really difficult team as well. So, you guys, we do have the call queue stacking up. If you guys want to get in, the link, I will drop it again in a moment for people calling in. But also, if you guys are looking to get up the information, especially you Trojans out there, if you want to find out how is this all going to affect USC, I can guarantee you there's one place you can go to get all the information you need. Head over to Trojans Wire. Matt is covering this thing very, very thoroughly. You can get a number of articles there from Trojans Wire that explain the scheduling, how it's going to work out, all the nuances of the schedule. So please take that opportunity to check it out. Matt, you want to really quickly take a look at the 2024 schedule, 25 schedule, and see how that affects the Trojans?
Sure.
Okay, so then let's move into 2025. We see a lot of away games become home games, etc. for USC. But Matt, what sticks out for you once we flip-flop this?
So, 2025, this is going to be the bear. Like, this is going to be the nasty schedule. Like 2024, again, LSU, Notre Dame, those are the tougher games. But in 2024, they're both. I mean, LSU is going to be in Vegas. That's certainly not going to play like a road game. It might be a neutral game. LSU is probably going to travel pretty well, but it's not going to be a road game. You're going to get plenty of USC fan presence in Vegas. And of course, it's not like having to go to Arlington to play Nick Saban as USC did when it faced Alabama in 2016. This is going to be more like a USC home game. It's a much friendlier commute for USC fans. And of course, next year, Notre Dame, it's an even year. So Notre Dame is at home in LA on Thanksgiving weekend. But then you flip the page to 2025, USC is going to have to go to Notre Dame, for the non-con, and then at Ohio State, at Wisconsin, all in the same year. 3 filthy, McNasty, 94-mile-an-hour sliders on the outside corner. That is just going to be a rough go for USC to have 3 high-end, really challenging road games, all in the Midwest, all with long travel, having to go to South Bend, having to go to Columbus, and having to go to Madison in 2025. So 2024 lines up really well in the Big Ten for USC. 2025, not nearly as much.
Yeah. Okay. So, and Matt, mind if we go ahead and open this up for calls?
Absolutely.
We got a queue on here. But first off, we have, you just saw him a few minutes ago. We have Will ND showing up here. Will, how are you doing?
What's up, guys?
Let me move this real quick. We're doing great. So what do you think? Now that you're going to be pretty soon, that you guys will be joining us in the Big Ten?
Yeah, probably 2026 will be our first season since they have the 2024 and 2025 schedules up.
You got the new AD. Maybe move this thing along in a different direction. Swerbrick.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I mean, Jack Swerbrick's done a lot of good, but there's some things I don't agree with that he's done.
But hey, Will, while we're on the subject, like Bavakwa said, like, we love independence here at Notre Dame. So what? He's blowing smoke? That's a smoke screen?
I mean, I have a feeling that, I don't know, man. Just with the AAU thing, I feel like he's probably blowing smoke, but we'll see.
Interesting. Because like, he just came right out and said it. Like, he didn't have to say it, right? Like, why not just, shut up and keep your cards hidden?
Yeah.
That tells me he really does like independence. But the other thing is, he's the former chairman of the NBC Sports Group. So, like, to me, Will, just my 2 cents, like, he works at NBC, so that tells me, like, he wants to milk Notre Dame's NBC contract and the Big Ten NBC contract. Because if you put USC and Notre Dame together, you're diluting both sides of that.
Mm.
You know, you want to have Notre Dame's independence getting all that money that's not shared with anyone, bringing Notre Dame into USC's conference. You're not maximizing dollars that way. So anyway, that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've been busy today, so I haven't looked that into it.
It's a natural point of conversation today when, you know, USC in the Big Ten is obviously big news because USC's first ever Big Ten schedule has been released. So like that's a natural national talking point.
Do you think it's harder or easier than you would have liked for as a Trojans fans? You guys are you happy with the schedule?
Personally, like I haven't like we're, you know, as you know, we do our Trojans live show on Monday, and Tim and Rick do Trojan Conquest live Sundays at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. So like we're coming up on the weekend. We're gonna see what USC fans really do think about this. But like just my initial feeling, like this 2024 schedule in particular, very manageable. Like you have just one really big, daunting road game, and that's at Happy Valley against Penn State. But you get Michigan and Wisconsin at home. And like that's a bigger point about conference schedules and college football schedules in general. Also NFL schedules. You want the toughest games at home. You know, if you have to play 5 road games instead of 4, but those road games are pretty manageable, that's a decent trade-off. And USC has just the one really tough road game in the Big Ten in 2024. The other road games, you know, like UCLA is one of those road games. Like that's like the 3 non-UCLA road games in 2024. They're all pretty manageable. But you look at 2025, what Tim has up on the screen. Well, then you're going to Ohio State and Wisconsin. You know, Minnesota could be tricky, but you know, Ohio State and Wisconsin, like that's the thing that USC fans were worried about, that you'd have to play several really difficult road games in the same year. And of course, with the travel, with the logistics, like that could get really difficult. The team could get worn down. So I'm really happy about 2024, but 2025, that could be, you know, a Grim Reaper type season.
And are we looking at what I'm looking at? So, I mean, we might be talking about on the field and facing Ohio State in the shoe. And I get that. We get Michigan at home, but we go to Penn State, you know, we go to Happy Valley on the road. But you know what I'm looking at in 2025? When are we playing Minnesota? When are we going up to Camp Randall? What part, you know, is it going to be late November where they decide, okay, let's see what these guys can do here in Big Ten country? Are we getting those games really, really late on the schedule without UCLA to protect us at the very end there? I'm wondering what that's going to look like as far as it's shaking out. But also USC fans out there, if you don't have your tickets now for the 20-foot, you know, if you haven't lined up your season tickets, which obviously you have to wait, but you get in line, you better make sure you have season tickets. Because I'm going to tell you, like we're talking about around here, there are a lot of Wisconsin alums. There's a lot of Michigan alums. So it's not just the fact that there's going to be a lot of hype for USC playing in this Big Ten schedule, these great, you know, helmet games against these Iowa and Nebraska and Wisconsin, you know, and Michigan. It's not that. It's going to be all of their fans, because we get cracked on for not having a full stadium. What people don't realize is just the thousands and thousands of Big Ten fans that live right here in LA. And there's a reason why they're going to be going crazy. So you guys better start lining up your tickets, because it's going to be a tough sell. And that the News Coliseum, they downsized it to 78,000. It's going to be, guarantee you, every conference game, I guarantee you, will be sold out. You know, so
well, except for Rutgers and Maryland, but like any medium to high end Big Ten game will be sold out, no doubt. Like Illinois, Chicagoans, Snowbirds, like they'll be there. You
might be surprised. I mean, I've worked with 4 people, and I'm from Maryland, so I don't know. This is a small little cross section. I think Maryland might represent as well, so we'll see. But yeah, it's gonna be really crazy. And then the other part of that is you know, what happens? What's gonna be the Matt Rule and the Fickle effect, you know? And again, also what's gonna be going on with that offense in Iowa? So I think it's gonna get really interesting really fast.
And the other thing we have to mention is that, you know, UCLA is going to be playing now like 8 road games per year, because those games against Nebraska, Wisconsin, they're going to be road games. You're going to have more. it's going to be like the 1994 and 1999 Rose Bowls when you had like 2/3 Wisconsin fans, 1/3 UCLA fans in Pasadena. So the Bruins better get ready for those road
They better
games.
work that out, or get more tarps, right? Or get more tarps.
Yeah, they might put on
One
the
of the
tarps.
two.
Oh God, yep, they did
Chris,
that to USC.
Chris out there,
They did that to
you better get more
USC last
tarps.
November. Yep.
Chris is seething.
But hey, listen, Will,
But
thank
like
you
they
so
need
much.
the money, they're going to be subsidizing Cal Berkeley, so they need that money. I don't think I don't think it's sustainable for them to keep the tarps on.
They need a new tarp fund. Oh, I just did something there. Okay, yeah. So let's Will, thank you so much as always supporting the show. You're awesome. We get some people back. Hopefully you'll stay in the chat. We could talk a little later. All right. Thanks, Will.
See you.
Next up, we have. All right. So this is the biggest. Lomansky, I'm sorry, but I think Erica has surpassed you as the biggest Iowa fan that we have. So Erica, go Hawks. How you doing tonight?
Hi. Hello. How's it going?
Good.
Well, first of all, I want to say Lomansky's a great Iowa fan. So
he is.
Nothing but respect. So anyway, really quick, I do have a phone call in a few minutes I have to attend to, but I just wanted to hop on quickly. Matt, I don't think I've talked to you before, so it's nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
I was listening to your comments about Iowa's fixed opponents and that, and I have to respectfully disagree with it.
Okay.
Reason being, I'm kind of tired of 4 of our games of the season being predetermined all the time, because I feel that we need to be more prevalent on a national level, especially given that our offense is going to be taking a jump this year with our transfer portal additions, and we need to get rid of that crap narrative about our offense. And it was, don't get me wrong, that was merited, but that's not typical Iowa football either. That was, we're never a powerhouse offensively, but that was just basement low. That was horrific.
So Erica, I got to ask you, on Twitter all the time, you see these things with, food items okay, here are 3 food items. Which one has to go? So Minnesota, Nebraska, Wisconsin, if picking of the 3, which one has to go?
Nebraska.
Okay.
So first of all, I guess, how can I say this? My first instinct would indeed be Nebraska, but if I were a Minnesota fan, I'm not sure what I would pick, because PJ Fleck hasn't beat us yet. So maybe they want to see us go off their schedule. I don't know. I can't speak for a Minnesota fan. And actually, I do like PJ Fleck. Obviously, he's not my favorite or anything, but I do respect him a lot. But anyway,
it's Floyd. It's Floyd. You got to keep Floyd, right?
Yeah, no, I want to keep Floyd. I want to get rid of Nebraska just because I'm tired of their fans who live in last century. And again, like I said on the last show, I don't prejudge somebody just because they're a fan of X team, but there's some Husker fans I really respect. I really like Cole, who comes on our show for, once in a while. I don't have any problem with him, but the ones who I do have a problem with, who just are so obsessed about their national championships last century, who haven't gone to a bowl since God knows when, who took 8 years to beat us. And the only reason they did it is because we had an abysmal offense. And they didn't even, it was not even how can I say it? It wasn't a total massacre. It's not like they massacred us. So, and we had a horrible offense. I love it when people say oh, but you're an Iowa fan, whatever, your offense is horrible. I'm well, yeah, it was. I'm not such a homer that I'm not gonna, I'm gonna be real. I know what it was, but I also know that's not a typical Iowa offense either. We don't usually suck that much at offense. We're not top anything, but we only need, it's just like the reverse of you guys. We only need an average offense.
Yeah. And you sorted out, your quarterback situation.
Right.
McCarthy. So, you're Lil, this is now, are you hoping that you guys get those 24, 25 points? Or are you hoping for the under?
I want the 24.3 points. That way we can win some football games and Brian gets let go still.
Now, didn't Corey on the Iowa show say that they're going to round up no matter what? So even if it's 24.1, they round up to 25?
That was a joke. I think that was him being sarcastic.
Okay.
I'm not certain, but I'm pretty sure. But yeah, that's what I want. I want to win at least 10 games this season, because I think anything less is a failure at this point, given our schedule, our portal additions, etc. But yeah, the main reason I called, though, was to say my opinion to Matt about, I don't want 4 predictable games on my schedule. I just don't want that. I'm tired of it. And as far as I'm concerned, Iowa State can go too. We've beat them 66% of the time. It doesn't need to be on our schedule anymore. We've dominated them. There's no point. If we want to be ever recognized on a national level, we need to play more games like with other people around the country, not Iowa State, not Nebraska. We need to branch out a little bit here so that we're more nationally known, especially since our offense is going to hopefully be decent. So
got to raise this question then. Would you like the Big Ten to move from 9 conference games to 8? Because that would give you an extra non-conference bite at the apple every year.
You know what? I haven't really thought about that. Without thinking about it too much, I would say I might be game for that, but I'd need more time to analyze like the consequences of it. But yeah, that was my opinion. So Matt, like I said, disrespectfully, I'm not wanting to be disrespectful.
You're not.
Because I get called out.
Disagreement's healthy.
You know what? It's funny, Matt, because I get called out all the time for being harsh and critical, especially of my Hawkeyes. And they're like, oh, Erica's mean and all this. And I'm like, no, I'm honest.
Sports talk is critical. Like if we're just throwing puff pieces around, like we should all just go home.
Yeah, what's the point then, right?
Right.
So
just,
anyway,
avoid the name calling, but like good, sharp, informed criticism, like that's the lifeblood of this.
Yeah, and also there's one fan whose name I won't mention, big OSU fan, who just hops into Hawkeye chats all the time saying, oh, OSU beat you how many times, like stuff like that. I'm like, I don't care. Go find another channel to crash. Like that doesn't mean anything as far as like, why are you coming into other people's channels about other teams? Like I've seen some Michigan channels too. I've seen this on other sports or on other football team channels. They come into the chat, this person saying, oh, Ohio State's record against your team is this. It's like, knock it off. Do you have anything better to do with your life? But anyway, I'm not going to continue on that route. I do need to get ready for this phone call, but if you guys are still going when I'm done, I will jump back in and listen again.
Awesome. Thank you, Erica, for always supporting all the channels as well as our channel. And I can't wait to play you guys. Hopefully you're coming out to that game.
We're going to have so much fun. We're going to have so much. I think it's going to be such a fun game.
Yeah, I'm coming out to Kinnick. As long as it's not in November, I promise you, I'm going to Iowa City because all these stadiums, I'm just going to be checking them off my list. So thank you, Erica. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you.
All right. We've gone for a little while here, and now we're pulling up we got our first Trojan on here. Grateful Trojan. Thank you so much. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Just wanted to kind of chime in today, man. It's what a day. What an exciting day. It's like Christmas, man. We've been waiting for this day for a long time, and it really, really kind of puts it into context what we're going into because you already know we have ND non-conference and then LSU in Vegas, and to see the road that we have to go down in 24, it's daunting, but I think we're going to be ready. I think we're going to be capable, and I think we're going to be more than what they think we're going to be. So I'm excited about it.
I fully agree with you. If you were listening to Rick earlier, he was talking to Tony, and when Tony had the live stream, Rick broke down the 2024. He's talking about the fact we're going to play LSU, a neutral site, and then we have again. I think Trojan fans, you get ready for it. That I do think it's going to be a whiteout game. So going out to Happy Valley is no small task. Let's put it that way. So remember, I think the last time SC was out there in the 90s, they really got they were taken out to the woodshed. So if we're not ready for that game, it's going to be pretty scary. But I
honestly hope that's how we're welcomed into the Big Ten. I hope they welcome us with a whiteout game right off the bat. Like just here you go. Welcome to the Big Ten. Whiteout. Let's go.
That's a game I definitely want in September, not in November. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, I would take Penn State in November more than Wisconsin, but
right.
That's either here nor there. But really, it's going to be an interesting year because we're going to be breaking in a new quarterback. Obviously, we're going to be probably with either Miller or Malachi. I'm kind of leaning towards Miller as of right now. He's had more field time. It's an interesting schedule to break in a new quarterback, no doubt about it. But we're building up the defense. We're getting ready for Big Ten ball. We're building up an offensive line that's suitable for the Big Ten. I'm excited, man. I'm originally from Michigan, so I grew up watching these teams, my whole life. So I grew up going to the Big House often, and I'm excited to see Michigan come out here. Obviously, that's going to be a huge one. It's incredible. I mean, just Harbaugh versus Lincoln. Just think about that, man. That's two top 5 coaches going head to head, man. And just the recruiting battles that we're developing are right now with the Big Ten. It's, I mean, we couldn't ask for actually a better schedule just to get, featured as much as we're going to. We're going to be seen a lot in comparison to what we're used to, the times that we're used to be playing, the networks that we're used to being on. USC is going to take full advantage of our situation. We're going to be able to say, hey, you come here, you're playing XYZ, and you're playing them in prime time. You're playing them where 10 million people are watching, and we haven't had that as a pitch for a long period of time. We haven't been able to say that. And even better, the Ducks are going to be playing on the CW.
Yeah. Matt, any thoughts?
Well, a lot of different thoughts raised. Grateful Trojan about, the whiteout at Penn State and playing Michigan in prime time. So like Michigan's definitely going to be a primetime game because that's in the Coliseum. But my initial thought, and this is not like official information, this is just a prediction. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. No one should take my predictions as gospel. But I think that the Penn State game stands out to me next year as a big noon Saturday game because like it's the one really big showcase game for USC on the road. So that makes sense to me as the big noon Saturday. And so, if that game is noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, chances are that won't be the whiteout option for Penn State, and that Penn State will save that for, one of its core main Big Ten rivals. That's just my early thought, but we'll see. Like maybe there will be a plot twist, and maybe that game does get slotted in prime time. But my inclination would be that's a big noon Saturday game. And then USC in 2025 with USC, Ohio State, that's probably a big noon Saturday. And it'll be interesting to see if USC at Wisconsin is also big noon or if that one gets moved to prime time. But I think USC at Ohio State definitely going to be a big noon Saturday game. And I know it's 2 years away, but like just being able to look at the schedule, that's my clear feeling. Like I don't feel conflicted or ambivalent about it. Like that just really seems to make sense in terms of the TV assignments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there's also the 3:30 slot. I mean, something's got to go there at some point too. So
yeah, well, that's CBS. So and it'll be interesting to see how much NBC and CBS trade off the non-big noon games in the Big Ten, because that might give us a sense of like what the Big Ten can and what CBS and NBC consider, second tier versus third tier. That's going to be an interesting continuous plot point for USC in the Big Ten. And
so really cool to break in here, you guys. Willie, thank you really so much. I won't flash the USC helmet because I think you're not a USC fan, but catch me at the Coliseum for Michigan against USC next year. That's a big time. That's a big time matchup. Sorry, I didn't catch that. Can't wait. Yeah, actually, he's a Trojan fan. My bad, Willie. Yeah, me too. I can't believe it. You might help me out with this one, Matt. When was the last time we had the Wolverines in the Coliseum? I know we've met them. Let's see, it was in 2007 and 2003. We played them in Rose Bowls. But when was the last time we had the Wolverines in the Coliseum?
Yeah, I can't recall any time in recent memory that the Wolverines played in the Coliseum. But it's really interesting how Ohio State's going to be visiting UCLA next year in the Big Ten schedule. And UCLA used to share the Coliseum with USC. And I do remember, I remember in the sense of, I remember looking it up. I was only 3 years old at the time, but Ohio State did play in the Los Angeles Coliseum in 1979 to face the UCLA Bruins. They played the Bruins in Pasadena more recently, circa like 2000, like a little over 2 decades ago. But I don't have any recollection of when the last time it was that Michigan played in the Coliseum. And that's going to be fascinating, right? Because USC and Michigan have played so many times. Like that's the number one most played Rose Bowl matchup over the years. But of course, that's occurred in Pasadena. Now it goes to the Coliseum. So you're going to have the romance of the Rose Bowl, but being played in the Coliseum instead of the Rose Bowl Stadium. It's going to be different, but it's going to be really, really cool.
Yeah, and Willie, sorry, I mixed that up. You are a Trojan fan. It's hard to see. I can't even see the screen. So fight on, man. Thank you so much for your super chat. Really appreciate you helping out the show. And really quickly, anything else grateful? Did you have any more questions for us?
Yeah,
Or
I also kind of wanted to, well, not necessarily a question. I just kind of wanted to like point out like the format that they're doing, with it being only UCLA as our rival. I love that. I just really didn't want to see us getting force fed into a situation where we're playing somebody that's quote unquote our rival.
right.
And I like that they put us with Penn State, 2 years in a row, and that's kind of like, in my opinion, it's kind of like a feeler. They're just kind of they're seeing how that takes, and obviously it's going to be a huge media get. But there's also a little bit of a history between Penn State and USC that I think can definitely create that rivalry. And the fact that Penn State doesn't have a designated rival, that's that's kind of mind-boggling to me, considering how long they've been in the Big Ten, that they don't have anybody that they consider a true quote rival. I mean, Michigan State's the closest thing, I guess, to it, and that's probably who they'll be playing at the end of the year. But I just really enjoy the format. I think it's cool. I think it's really it kind of came out of left field, really, because everyone was just so locked into the 3-6-6 format, with it just being three locked forced rivals essentially. But it's fluid, and I like that. I think that's cool.
Yeah, well, so we say right now, we're speaking of Hummus Hero on screen here, we're saying right now that we don't have any true rivals, but I'll tell you what, Ohio State, there's been some bad blood between USC and Ohio State, believe me, through the years, especially when Ohio State's come to the Coliseum. But the most recent one, where they kind of, even though USC shut them out in the second half, USC started out with a pick six, and they had they started that fumble, then a pick six, got behind, and never really got back into that game. In the Cotton Bowl that the Buckeyes won. So there's some bad blood there. And I just got a feeling that, all it takes is a couple times where you're riding high and you're on your way to something great, and then all of a sudden someone knocks you off. I could see that happening both ways between the Buckeyes and the Trojans, as well as Michigan. And then that factor is, you have to assume that if Notre Dame comes into the Big Ten, it's a given that they will also be obviously a protected rival.
Definitely.
And I think it's just a matter of time. So that's our second one coming in.
Definitely. I agree with that. And if Notre Dame comes, more than likely Miami comes, and that will probably give Penn State their actual rival.
It's funny. I've been joking my Miami friends for a while how much I want a home and away in Miami. And now it's getting closer than ever to possibly happening. So
I think it's the best match. I think it's really the best match besides Notre Dame. It's I mean, you're looking at matchups and helmets and all that good stuff. It's just like there's so much, you can build off of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, grateful. I've read your Twitter. I think you're awesome, man. Thank you so much for finally calling the show. Come join us again. We're always doing calls on Sunday nights for our Trojan Conquest Live. You're more than welcome to come and bring a USC perspective.
That's so great, man. I appreciate it. Fight on.
All right. So next up, we've had patiently waiting for us. I'm going to throw us out here really quickly. I want to give it a shot. I'm not sure how it's going to work. It worked in the laboratory, but hasn't worked yet. I have a phone number here. If someone wants to call in, I'll put you in right after Jackson. So let me pull Jackson in a second here. But let's go ahead and give this phone call a try. Let me see where it is. Hold on. Sorry. If you guys could help me out here and check out, see if we can make this happen. Go ahead and call in on the phone line, which is right here. Okay, so try number 323-285-1231. Again, 323-285-1231. Give us a call. It did not work pregame here with when we went back and forth with Matt and I, but I want to give it a shot. So go ahead, and if you call in, you'll be the next one after Jackson. Speaking of Jackson, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me on, Tim, Matt. Guys.
Howdy, Jackson.
Listen, I think we found two of the most rational Alabama fans in the world in Jackson and Tide Guy. I love talking football with really knowledgeable fans, and both of you guys aren't the ones I find on Twitter. You're the exception to where you guys absolutely know. You, for such a young man, have an amazing knowledge of college football in general. So always grateful.
I'm about a little while ago about like you couldn't remember the last time USC Michigan played home and home. But the only time they played in a home-and-home series was 1957 and 1958. The previous matchups were all in Rose Bowls, but that all changes in 2024. Now, in
Hey,
2010,
Jackson, can you hang on 1 second? I'm going to try this. Sorry, just give me 1 second. I'm going to try this really quick. We're going to try this call really quick. Hold on.
Call from
Immaculate.
to accept, press 1. To send.
Immaculate. Hi, you're on with Matt and Tim and Jackson. Can you hear us? And no, he can't. All right. Well, that was worth the effort. Thank you, Immaculate, for calling in.
Like the Big Ten were experimenting.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to
Can
get
you
this
hear
done.
me?
I can hear you, but that's not going to work if you can't hear us and you're listening on a show delay. So it's probably has something to do with my mix minus. Hold on 1 second. I just think it's probably right now won't be the time for us to give it a go, but appreciate you calling in, and we'll have to try it a different time. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for calling, trying at least. All right. Let me give that banner. Sorry, Jansen, carry on. Sorry about that, Immaculate.
oh, that's okay. In 2010, if someone had told either of you that USC Maryland would one day be a Big Ten conference game, what would you say?
You're out of your flipping mind.
Right.
And, it's got to be awesome seeing that. It's really funny, though. And I'm seeing for 2020. So let's see. We're looking at 2024 and 2025. USC, of course, they're annually playing UCLA, but they're also playing Penn State and Wisconsin. So in 2025, USC fans are going to get to experience the jump around. That is going to be fantastic. Oh, man. Like, I've never been to Madison, Wisconsin, but I bet it would be fun. So I see that they got Penn State, Purdue, Northwestern as road games. UCLA is a road game for 2024. The home schedule is Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin. Oh man, that's gonna be. What's your take on it?
Well, so Jackson, as I said earlier, like you want the tough games at home, you want the more manageable games on the road. And in 2024, USC generally gets that. Now you do have Penn State on the road, but like that's the only really daunting road game. Like I think USC can kind of handle the road trips to Northwestern and Purdue, especially now that you don't have Jeff Brom, the slayer of top 5 ranked teams. You don't have him at Purdue anymore. He's at Louisville. So the Purdue roadie is probably a lot more manageable now. And you get Michigan and Wisconsin, 2 tough games at home, and you have just 1 really tough road game. So like if I'm USC and if I'm evaluating USC's Big Ten slate next year, I'm thinking 8-1. I'm thinking 8-1 should definitely be what USC is able to achieve. You get Notre Dame at home. That's probably a win. And so, like, if you're able to get through that LSU opener in Vegas, if USC wins that first really big game against LSU, like that to me looks like an 11-1 season. And in the 12-team playoff, zero question that USC will be in the 12-team playoff with 11-1. Like it could lose the Big Ten championship game, still comfortably make the playoff. So like it lines up really well in 2024. But again, 2025 at Wisconsin, at Ohio State, and then at Notre Dame out of conference. That's the real meat grinder as USC familiarizes itself with the Big Ten. But like the entry point next year, 2024, really lines up well for the Trojans as far as I'm concerned.
Oh man, that's going to be amazing. And I see Jason O says Penn State embraces not having any rivals after they stop playing Pitt. They like call themselves unrivaled. That's pretty sad, actually. That game's got to come back. And I'm looking at the 2025 slate for USC. They get to go to Ohio State. It'll be the first time since 2009 that they've gone to Ohio State. I mean,
yeah, that's more recent. The Matt Barkley game.
Oh man, that was an amazing game they had. But that 2008 shellacking at the Coliseum over the Buckeyes, man, that was a big one right there. And you get the like I said, experienced a jump around against Wisconsin. Minnesota, Rutgers. That's going to be amazing. Once again, 2010. Anybody told you that USC Rutgers going to be a conference game? It'd be you get laughed out of the room for saying that.
Absolutely. And one of the things that emergence here, Jackson, Tony Altamore, who also joins us sometimes at the Voice of College Football, like he made the point, and like now on today, we get to see a schedule. So like it's real, like it becomes concrete and official. Like USC is going to catch a plane flight to Chicago. USC is going to get on a plane to Baltimore, or, to play, or Washington, D.C. to play that Maryland game. USC is going to get on a plane to New Jersey, to Newark, or New York, whichever, and then bus over to Piscataway to play Rutgers. So USC coaches are going to be able to recruit in these markets. They're going to be able to visit these markets. And USC fans who are already there, they're going to be doing networking, fundraising, like beyond just what the Big Ten television deal is going to give to USC in terms of money. All these flights to Chicago, New Jersey, Baltimore, and these other Big Ten markets. I mean, USC is now going to be a fellow Big Ten member. All the fundraising, all the networking, all the collaborating among USC alumni hubs in these various population centers across the country. Like, we're not in Pullman anymore. We're not in Corvallis anymore. And those are lovely towns. I've been to both places, and they are lovely. They're charming. But like, this is where the big boys play. This is where you can do so much fundraising and networking on a larger scale, and it's gonna raise so much more revenue for USC beyond just the TV deals with Fox and NBC and CBS. It's going to be a money gusher for USC.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun getting to see USC play Nebraska in 2025. Now, the last time you guys played Nebraska, that was in the 2014 Holiday Bowl.
Holiday Bowl, yeah.
But prior to that was a home and home in 06 and 07. 07, Nebraska was the overhyped preseason top 25 team, but then fell apart to 5-7 as far as I can remember.
Nebraska was Texas before Texas became Texas.
Well, I think that Nebraska did a hell of a lot more in the 90s than Texas before Texas became Texas. You know what I mean? But I get where you're going with, Matt. But here's what I will say about those two games. There's been great, I had really a great time with the Iowa fans down at the Holiday Bowl until the Holiday Bowl started. And those games, I think it was 2006, 2007, when they came out here, Bill Callahan was the coach. They were riding high. They were excited. But US, that was a height of USC. We were really clicking on all cylinders. And I felt sorry for anybody coming into the Coliseum against those teams. But it was amazing. They had great fans. That's the biggest part, Matt and Jackson, I'm looking forward to. I'm not saying that the Pac-12 doesn't have great fans, but nothing's better than Midwest fans, in my opinion. I can't wait to go back there to these great stadiums. Even Camp Randall and Kinnick, if it's not too cold, I'm doing those things. I can't wait to go out there and just see these stadiums that I've been watching since I was a little kid on TV. And now I have a reason to get out there and see all these things. So it's going to be amazing. Jackson, speaking of amazing, you're always amazing. Thank you for calling in. Really appreciate you for you.
On.
And Jackson, I'm going to talk to you soon.
All righty, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, let's set it up.
All right, roll tide, Jackson. I'll catch you later.
Catch you later, gents.
Next up, we got Immaculate, the guy who was patient enough with me to try to call in our phone lines. Immaculate, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Good, man. How's this coming through?
Perfect. Loud and clear.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm not the biggest guy to talk to in terms I'm from Iowa personally, living in Phoenix. I'm not going to be able to tell you all the things about the teams like some of these are.
I'm here in Phoenix, so that makes two Phoenicians here.
Yeah, so Phoenix, that's half of it's Big Ten people, I swear.
Pretty much, if not 60%.
When I tell people
Like, yeah.
ASU is a dark horse for the Big Ten, they're like, "That's a joke." I'm like, "Come here and find out."
Yeah.
Like, come to Scottsdale, you'll see.
Yeah, and in Phoenix, just for people who don't know Phoenix, like you can often divide Phoenix in terms of its sports allegiances into like, where's the Steelers bar, where's the Packers bar, where's the Bears bar. It's really, you divide it into Midwestern subsections. And the other saying about Phoenix, it's a suburb of Chicago.
Yeah, I can see that. But it's true, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I like it. It's got a little bit of the Midwest charm mixed with the Southwestern food. But it's going to be interesting to see how you guys work in the Big Ten, because it gets slammed all the times in terms of gameplay and style. But what doesn't really show up on screen per se is strength. You're going to get a good taste of Midwest strength. And these teams are made for going up against that, so it doesn't really show as much. But you guys have just a bunch of stud athletes who look great, probably on TV or a picture of them. But it's going to be interesting to see how well they do once they're having that strength just on them all the time. That's really what I'm looking forward to. Some of the guys wanting to go up against. Go ahead.
Yeah, and just immaculate. Like, to me, one of the big concerns about USC playing in the Big Ten is that there's going to be these 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Central Time body clock games. And like we've seen Pac-12 teams like Stanford losing to Northwestern when it had Kevin Hogan, the Rose Bowl team, just played an absolute clunker in the early time slot. Jeff Tedford's good Cal teams would go to Maryland for an early game and they would just sleepwalk. And that's going to be something that USC is going to have to prove it can deal with. Like, so some people are going to say, and like, so you have an Iowa allegiance, so many will say, well, no one beats Iowa at Kinnick Stadium at night. And to be sure, like if USC has to play Iowa at night, that will not be an easy assignment. But to me, playing the 11 a.m. game in cold weather, like that just seems to set up USC for a sleepwalk situation in which, these guys who play in California, and go to high school in warm weather climates. And like USC's been recruiting a lot in Georgia and Florida, in addition to California. So you have this really early kickoff time, and maybe the opponent won't be as daunting on paper as Ohio State, as Michigan, as Penn State, as Wisconsin, but the body clock, like that's just an ambush waiting to happen, and it's going to be a real revealer of Lincoln Riley's skill at getting his team focused. We'll see if Alex Grinch is still on the staff when USC gets into the Big Ten. That's another conversation for another day. But really, and just speaking candidly in terms of my worries about USC, we're looking at these Big Ten schedules. To me, the time slotting is important, and it's something I'm really going to be keeping an eye on. I want as many 3:30 Eastern Big Ten road games as possible. You don't get too many at night. Of course, you're going to have to play some for NBC, but Fox is going to want those big noon Saturday games. And, you're going to have to get up early if you're USC, and you're going to have to answer that body clock question very convincingly. We're going to see next year.
It's probably the biggest reason for USC to try to stop Oregon and Washington from getting in, so that you get as many of the 3:30 games as possible. Because as long as it's just you guys, NBC is like, hey, we'll just put UCLA and USC on. But when you have to get there in the chill, it's not always cold, but it's chill. And you're going against people, especially the ones who are from the north up there playing in that area, their bodies are built for. Like, that's why they don't show up great on TV, because they've got that bare layer of fat over them. But there's just as strong underneath it, and they're kind of bred and raised in this. So it's going to be tough for those beach guys to come out there and
Well, now
I'm
listen, you got to stop right there, because this is what we heard from all the Oklahoma fans before the Orange Bowl. This is what we hear from all the Ohio State fans before we roll out to the shoe. I mean, I've been hearing it, and you got to remember one thing. One, a lot of our players are from Texas, the DMV. Heck, they're from all over. So the fact that we're going to have a bunch of Trojan beach surfers coming out there is very unlikely. If you've been watching, you guys had a great talk earlier about the differences in the rosters. You look at the players that Lincoln Ryan's pulling in, the offensive line guys. These are real legit. When USC's been good, we just had Anthony Munoz on our show, and Munoz was saying that, it was a different level big. There's stories that Roddy Pete talks about when his dad was coaching Arizona, and he was sitting there watching SC come into Arizona, and he looked at the size of the players. When you had those, we have the Pete Carroll size guys. Think about our linebackers we had back in 2008. Our safeties, the size of Taylor Mazer, Jason Leach. These are the guys and the size and the athletes that we're starting to get again. When USC's right, they have two things. They have the head coach like a Lincoln Riley. And the other thing they have gigantic guys from all over the country that are come into your house and steal your girlfriends and lay waste to the entire place. And that's what USC does. And believe me, we're not like Ohio State. Ohio State, I always say to Mark, has a very, very high floor. USC, we have a floor. We've seen it recently. But our ceiling, I will put our ceiling at USC with the right coach, with anybody in the country. And I think that I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I don't want Pete to come out here and tell me again.
I think we just won a national championship.
But we're getting close. We're getting close to that level where we're pulling in guys from Georgia. We're getting rush ends from Georgia, top 100 guys from Georgia, rush ends. This is a type of team that we're putting together. We're bringing Jackson, a gigantic running back from Texas. This is what we're doing at USC to get prepared for the Big Ten. Believe me, that staff knows what they're going into when they get to the Big Ten. So be careful. Be careful of those stereotypes, because you're right. I think we've had some great individual players on Helton's teams, but we have not had the level of size and skill and athleticism that coaches like McKay and Robinson and Carroll, had, or even to some degree, Smith teams, right? The late 80s. We haven't been close to that stuff. And I think we're getting close to it again.
Well, just want to highlight this point, just to make it very clear. I'm not worried about the cold primarily. I'm worried about an early morning game and the cold. So there's comments on, it's cold in Utah, it's cold in Colorado, cold in Pullman. Yes, of course. But USC doesn't play 9 a.m. games in those locations. So that's the particular point. The combination of cold, going against those rugged Big Ten linemen, and doing it in the wrong body clock position. That it's the combination platter focused on the 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Central Time factor. That's what I'm most concerned about, just to be clear.
And I didn't mean it as insulting towards your teams, but
by the way, half of that was just me messing with you, by the way.
No, it's all good. Like, I don't mind it. But as an Iowan who's been living down here in Phoenix now for a while, it would be tough for me to go back up there and do that. Now, you can recruit guys from up there, but their practice time is going to be in LA. And that's what you're going to get used to. Now, maybe they go up there and perform great. Personally, I think you guys have the right coach. He knows that. He knows what he's going to have to do to prepare for that. Oklahoma had to play in that when they'd go up north in their own conference. And plus, they play around. So you guys are going to know what to do for that. But it's one thing to prepare for it. It's another thing to be ready for that when he hits. Because like he's saying, when you get that chill and you get that in the morning and it's even earlier for your guys, it's going to be interesting to see how well they do. Because a team that you might not think is nearly as good as yours or as competitive as yours could end up having a large advantage just because, like you're saying, the timing of the game, what's the temperature there. When you're on a cold field, you're not going to be able to run on it the same way as you have before. It's just a different game, and it tends to be why the Big Ten people, they call it boring, but it's how you have to prepare to play in that league year round.
Yeah, and I do understand that, and I'm not saying that every player is going to be ready for that week in and week out. You make a great point about you practice how you play, right? You play, you practice. Anyway, yeah, you got it. You practice, you play how you practice, and in that situation, you are getting all the wet, the cold, the rain, etc. But what I'm saying is one, a lot of our guys aren't from here too. A lot of our guys, here's a great point right here. Grateful Trojan just brought up. A lot of our guys, they go to the Midwest, they go to the East, and they play football. And then you look at the NFL. I meant to ask, I blew it. I want to kill myself. I wanted to ask Anthony. Here's a guy who was from
Anthony
Ontario.
Munoz.
Anthony Munoz. I want to see if he was from, Ontario. Well, guess where did he play 13 years of NFL football? He played in the coldest game ever. Is that right?
The Freezer
Matt?
Bowl. Yeah.
Right?
1981 AFC Championship game. Yeah.
So it's really a mindset. I got to be honest with you, because you know what? First off, being in the Midwest doesn't mean you don't get cold. You're right. You get a little more used to it. But these guys from California, and the West Coast, they go to the Midwest and they ball out, and they play in that cold and they can do it. I agree with you. I do get your point that it's not every week and there's an acclimation to it. Yeah, Matt.
I would also say that, like, I would think, and we'll see what happens, but I would think that if USC has to play 2 straight games in the Eastern time zone or Eastern and Central, that USC will just stay. USC will fly from the one game location to the other instead of going back to Los Angeles, especially if it's later in the season, and that the Trojans would just, get acclimated to their environment instead of whipping around, flight. And that's also going to be part of the scheduling piece of the puzzle that I think you're going to see USC play, also UCLA play a couple home games, multiple home games, multiple road games. You're not going to have one game home stands, one game road trips. You're going to see them double up to minimize the amount of plane flights, because this Big Ten schedule, again, it's designed to reduce as much cross time zone travel as realistically possible.
Yeah. And one more thing, exactly on that note. I mean, even if it's just one extra day, instead of your Friday walkthrough day, maybe you come in on a Thursday, you just run practice. You just have the guys run around, just acclimate to it. I'm not saying you can get used to it in one day, but I'm going to say it gets pretty darn cold in Texas. It just does. These guys in the DMV, it gets cold out there all over the place. And it can
just ask Joe Montana from the 1979 Cotton Bowl.
So yeah, it gets freezing cold. So it's not like, I wonder what percentage of the kids are going to be that we have a lot of kids coming from the Trinity League that are studs. But again, those guys go off and play at Ohio State, or they go up to play in Oregon, and they don't wilt. But I get your point. I do get your point.
To be fair, I lived in Louisiana for a little while too, and the worst cold I've ever felt in my life was in Louisiana. So I don't mean to be like it's insurmountable. It's absolutely surmountable. You can absolutely go in there and have to teach some Big Ten schools to broaden their horizons and how they play football. That's kind of what I'm looking forward to seeing from USC and UCLA, is it forces the Big Ten to be a more diverse styling of how to play football. Living in Louisiana at 40 degrees, it's like you're walking out into a wet soup with a cold blanket on it. It's brutal. It hurts.
That sounds horrible.
It hurts. and you're not going to have that up there. It's just like a harsh cold. It's when you actually get maybe like a blizzard, it's really bad. But as some folks are saying, that's just the end of the season. It's not that bad. It's just when you're going up against someone who's practiced and prepared in that, there's an advantage. Whether that's enough, I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
Great stuff, Mac. I really hope you do call him more often. And if you didn't get enough Trojan talk tonight, every Sunday night, I'd love to have you as a caller. Come in. That's what we need to do. Hey, listen, on our show, I'm going to start bringing in, Matt's going to help me out. We're going to start bringing in some Big Ten stuff, because we're kind of like in between. We're in limbo. We still have our Pac-12 2023, which is going to be an amazing season with all the talent throughout the Pac-12. But we also got to start getting our listeners ready for the Big 12. So, a Big 12, the Big 10. So, the more callers we can get from the Big Ten that can tell us about your team, you will always be welcome on. Your stuff. I really appreciate you calling. I also appreciate you trying the phone line. I promise you I'll iron that out, make it easier for some people to get on our shows. So
we can do it again sometime. I tend to be a little more well-versed in the realignment stuff, but I do love to talk Big Ten from time to time.
I'll have to bring my Tony in for that one, because he's my realignment guy. Matt knows this stuff too. So
I'm a huge fan of his graphs. Not always everything that he says, but his graphs are amazing.
It's hard to argue with real numbers. Hey, Immaculate,
it is.
appreciate you coming by. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
And before we get to Larry Pilgrim, I promised I talked to Matt last minute to get him to come in for the show. He dropped a bunch of stuff, and then we started about 40 minutes late. So he has to run. He has a hard time. He committed to me that, but he has to go. I want to honor that, but I'm willing to stay on as long as we can get calls coming in. But we need to say goodbye to Matt. Matt, anything you want to talk about before we head out?
Hey, just read Trojan's Wire. We're doing a million different stories, lots of analysis, getting you the schedules and the formatting, the plans. So that's all I need to say.
It is actually all over. You go. I'm gonna drop the link in a moment. If you go to Trojan's Wire, you're gonna get story after story. If you want to know what's going on here, even if you're not a USC fan, Matt, if Matt is one of the most objective SC, because if you pinch him enough, he will say that he is an SC fan. His dad is an alum, but he is knowledgeable about all sports, from tennis to football to NFL football to basketball to baseball. So you're going to get a lot. You get a really objective view with Matt. When you read his articles, by the way, that's what I love about him. When I read articles about USC football, I'm hearing college football coming out from his writing, because he's that knowledgeable about sports in general. So you get you just get a lot. So I'm going to drop the link. And if you are curious about what's going on with the scheduling, there's really one stop for you. That is Trojan's Wire. It has everything from start to finish. He dropped everything to come here to join us. And I literally, the first thing I look at, I do go to Mark Colkin. Yes, your first stop. You're not my first stop, Mark. My first stop is always to stop over in at Trojan's Wire and read what they have out there. So
Mark's very good, though, gotta say.
I love his stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's my ride into work every day. Speaking of great stuff, also USCJ dropped a video regarding this too. We had a couple of shout outs. Actually, he came into our show, and then a couple people shout back to him. If you guys aren't subbed up to USCJ, you're missing out. What are you doing? He's got some of the best. He's got some of the best interviews. He has John Walker, the corner from USC during the Pete Carroll years, that comes on all the time on his shows. If you're not watching his stuff and subbing up to him, I don't know what you're thinking.
All right, final word before I go. Trojan Conquest Live, Tim Prangley, Rick Anaya, Sunday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. We get to unpack these Big Ten schedules a lot more. So watch Tim Sundays for Trojan Conquest Live. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Matt. All right, so Larry coming on. We got a couple of calls coming in. So we got Larry joining us. Larry, how you doing?
Good, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm just excited. I'm flying without a net now. I think this might be the first time I've ever been on a show by myself. What, is that really true? I've been working with Mark Rogers for a year now, and I think I always have. Well, I'm usually the wingman, and I have someone running the show. But it's weird. Larry,
you're not alone.
How are you doing?
80. I'm doing good. You're not alone. There's like 80, 90 people in the chat. So
that's true. I'm sure
you're not alone. Good. So bringing up the temperature. So I pretty much I played football in Utah, which is, I actually remember I enjoyed the November games as a player more than I did the September games, because it's like you're so hot, but in November when you're out there running around, it's not that bad, because you've got to, people that go to the gym or whatever, it's no different. Like when you're out there running around, you were just getting hot as heck. And so playing in November was actually more comfortable. And this is at a time where we didn't have gloves. That was probably the hardest part, is if your hands would get cold. So
yeah, I think that people do have to realize that USC, so I see Matt's point, and I see a lot of points, and it's not like it's always freezing cold when we go up to play, up at Rice Eccles, or we go into Boulder, or we go up north to Pullman. But these are places that are pretty dang cold in November, and I've seen a number of very icy cold games that the Trojans have played in, and here's another thing I forgot to bring up. They're also, I saw recently on Twitter that there was a air conditioned helmet for an LSU fan. I think it was the LSU player. I can't remember. The technology these days to keep the players warm or cold, hydrated, on the sidelines, keep them warm, is phenomenal. So the worrying about temperatures and everything, quarterback hands, the hand warmers go back decades, right? So the thought that they're not going to have the protection from the elements that they're, I think it might be a bit overplayed. What I will worry about again is will USC have that front seven in place to stop a Michigan team that is absolutely dedicated to running the ball down our throats? those are the more. I'm not worried about the travel or the weather as much as I am worried about will we have the personnel. Now, granted, I'm biased, but I think we are getting those guys in. There's pieces in here, but I think the other things can be sorted out.
Yeah, when USC decides to take football seriously, it's a beware situation. And I'm not a USC fan or anything like that. I'm neutral when it comes to conversations with you. And I mean, I've been watching what they're doing, and once they get rolling, I'm watching them, grab guys right now. And once they get rolling, it's just, I mean, watch out. And this is not me being a Pac-10, Pac-12 homer. I just remember the Pete Carroll days, and when you get the right guy in there culturally, which I think Lincoln Riley is perfect for that culture, it's watch out, especially with the offense. And I've said it. I believe the ceiling for USC is higher than Ohio State, just based on all the advantages they have. LA, just all of it. It's just insane how many advantages USC has. And when they decide to take advantage of that, watch out.
Agreed.
It's simply what it is. And I'm watching you guys, and also Bud Elliott just came out. You guys are climbing the blue chip ratio like it's nobody's business. And
people are not watching the quality of transfers we're getting, but also this last weekend, USC brought in a bunch of guys. I mean, these are national guys that they're bringing in. They're top recruits. They're top 100, top 150 players, and it's just a matter of time. And the more USC wins, I didn't get a chance to speak on it a little earlier, but when USC is going to the Big Ten, one of the biggest talking points of negative recruiting you had against USC is no one's going to see you play. Do you want to play on the Pac-12 network at 10:30 Eastern? That when your game kicks off, is that what you really want to do? But now, like you got earlier, we're talking about these games are going to be on, noon Eastern, 3:30 Eastern, 7 Eastern, which is great. That 7 Eastern game is going to be awesome for me because it's a 4 o'clock kickoff here local. That's the perfect time to tailgate, you guys. Trojans out there, we're going to have some epic tailgates. I'm not sure about the earlier games. That's going to be rough, right? But as far as those games, they're going to be epic.
Hey, I have a question for you, and I know this is how it worked in the Pac-12. I have no idea how the Big Ten is going to work it, but I know, like, you're in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 has a minimum. Each team has to be on the Pac-12 3 times. Is the Big Ten, do they have that same situation going on? Are you guys going to be stuffed on Big Ten Network?
That I don't know. That was definitely a question for, especially media. That's a question for Matt. Matt would be able to nail that for you. I don't know. Yeah, as well as we do, which would happen to because you guys got screwed on some national games last year. There's some big games that Utah should have been on a much bigger stage than that they were because of the obligations to the Pac-12. But
our Oregon State game is on up there at Reser is going to be on a Friday night. What are the odds that's going to get, it's a Friday night. And I think a lot of the Friday night games they kind of are stuck on the Pac-12, but nationally Friday night games, I've noticed it doesn't matter what conference, Friday night games just don't do well for whatever reason. People get their paycheck and go to dinner or go to a movie. I don't know, but Friday nights also suck. And so I'm not a fan of the Friday night games, but yeah, if you get an answer, I would like to know, like, if the Big Ten, you're obligated.
Well, hopefully we have a bunch of Big Ten fans out there, and they would be the ones to know, what is the contractual agreement between. Now, I think it's a bit different because the Pac-12 is a separate entity, right? It's like a Pac-12 thing. I think really in the Big Ten, it just comes down to where you're going to fall in as far as because the Big Ten network, that's an ESPN thing, isn't that correct? It's not an independent entity, is it?
No, it's SEC, I think, run an ACC network are pretty much run through ESPN. I think they built their platforms and did all that, where Fox built the Big Ten. And so, yeah, you know what? I think you're right. I don't think ESPN sticks Alabama on Big Ten unless it's like Austin Pay or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they don't stick Alabama.
I'm curious too. I'm going to look into that as well. Because
Okay.
I am curious of what the story is on that. Larry, awesome. Thank you for calling in, you guys.
Yep.
I'm gonna drop a
you.
link again for you guys to join. If you, I'll stay on as long as people are on with me, but once that happens, I'm getting out of here. So we have need more cowbell. How are you doing, sir?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Do you have a question?
Couple things. First, the Big Ten network is run by the Big Ten.
Okay.
It's owned there. And so there's sort of a pecking order when it comes to television, at least in the Fox era, where the Fox had and other networks, ESPN, chose before the Big Ten network.
Right.
So usually the biggest game of the week was the high noon kickoff, and then ESPN would get the second choice for a night game or an afternoon game. And sort of the smaller games were on the Big Ten network. They also show continual replays of Big Ten games. So USC would probably, being the name that it is, would probably see a lot of noon kickoffs or ESPN games.
Yeah.
And there's no limit to how many times a particular team can show up, or as few. And jokingly, the Big Ten network, or the Big Ten Fox, is called the Michigan-Ohio State network. Sometimes Penn State.
Right. So, and that's how it is really with all, the networks. There's some have priority and they get their picks in. And then I know there's an obligation though. So do you know of an obligation? What is the obligation in the Big Ten to play on the Big Ten network?
I don't know what that contract says now, but again, it has to do with who gets to choose first, and that sort of trumps everything. But all the games are eventually shown.
Grateful Trojan, I guarantee you that will be the Big Ten network for USC. Those of you guys don't know, Georgia Southern is the new landing spot for Clay Helton, the old coach at USC. And I don't know if this was done out of respect or is this kind of like bringing a lamb to the slaughter, because they're coming into the Coliseum, and I'm really hoping that USC fans show a little bit of class. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just getting ready for the shower of comments that are going to come when the man comes through, because a lot of people have said, and I believe it to be true, I met him at a couple of basketball games. The guy is a very nice man. He was in way over his head. Matter of fact, we were talking about Mark Colkin earlier. He had a great, if you guys listened to him 2 days ago, goes into it really clearly. The guy is a nice guy. He didn't hire himself. He didn't give himself an extension. He'll be coming in, but that's a game I'm pretty sure that will be on the Big Ten network. Okay, so any questions about or any comments about USC in the Big Ten?
Yeah. Well, first of all, USC, fearing the Big Bad Michigan, you saw what happened with when TCU ran into them. You can expect USC, Michigan, USC, Ohio State, USC, Penn State. You're going to have to score 40 points to win the game. They are not going to be defensive struggles. And USC is built exceptionally well to do that. They're probably, if Ohio State is number one ranked program in the conference right now, they're 1B. Michigan is built to be the antithesis of Ohio State. That may play well at USC, but the history of Michigan going west is just awful in Rose Bowls. They just get creamed by USC, and there's no reason not to believe that's going to happen. That's going to change in the future. Michigan just does not travel to the West Coast well at all, whether it's Washington, UCLA, or USC.
Well, that goes to what we were talking about. When USC goes to Rose Bowls, that means they usually have a good coach.
Yeah.
And we have a good coach at USC. That means we're recruiting well, not just in our backyard with all the talent we have here, but that also means, like, if you go back to the 70s, that means you have a guy on defense called Gary Jeter on offense.
Yep, and you're lining up a 5-star wide receiver.
Well, we were joking about we had Anthony Munoz on, and my dad used to say to me all the time at USC we don't have all. A lot of schools have on their offensive line they have All-American after All-American after All-American. At USC during that time, 78 to 79, there were of the 7 starters, 5 of them were first rounders. The sixth one was a second rounder, and the last guy was a center, was a 6th rounder. So I mean, and those guys went on 13, could play 13 years in the league. Roy Foster, guys like Bruce Matthews, just on and on. I could go down the list. Just incredible players. That's what USC gets when we have the right coach. And it looks like if you guys are watching right now, if you're looking at how USC is recruiting, that's starting to come back again at USC, along with this whole new world of NIL. And if fair or not fair, there are a lot of built-in advantages of being in Los Angeles when it comes to NIL, like legit NIL opportunities. So I also see that as a win-win in the transfer portal as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm not going to get too excited. I'm not going to hit my button about winning the championship again. But I mean, it's the momentum's there, and I can feel it. So it's palpable. So.
Yeah, the other thing you guys need to do is do a Big Ten tour of tailgating. It is awesome. It actually begins on Friday night before Saturday. The RVs and the trailers start showing up. Whether it's brats in Wisconsin, or some of the great eats in Maryland, or New York City delis, Mark is going to have to shell out some money and send you guys.
Oh well, listen, yeah, Mark Rogers.
It is something you need to experience.
Yeah, please send that email. We would love for him to send us out on some of these tailgate tours. No, I'm sure of it. I mean, I've seen, it's no question that the Big Ten and the SEC probably have the best tailgating in the country. Not to say that USC's tailgating is pretty damn cool. You guys will enjoy that as well. Coming out here, it's a different, like you just said, it's different flavors. So you're getting Maryland, you're getting crab cakes or whatever. I don't be too traditionally assuming things, but you come out here to California, you're getting all kinds of great Mexican food, etc. Steaks. So I mean, you're going to see that give and take on wherever you go regionally for your tailgating. But I agree with you that overall the level of tailgating in the Big Ten and the SEC are probably second to none. So I am looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, and really the Big Ten fans are not antagonistic for people that want to travel. It is very friendly, and there's everybody loves their team, but no one's being obnoxious about it. It's really respectable.
I find that to be true. The only one place in the Big Ten that I've ever gone to where it was more than the norm, because every we all have every fan base has their fair share of people, but
sure,
I gotta tell you, going into the Horseshoe and when we silenced that place, when Stephon Johnson scored that touchdown at the end, leaving there were some really unhappy fans that weren't very sportsmanlike after that game. So that was the closest thing. But again, the fans have come out. Now, when the Buckeyes came out to California, that's a whole different story. That was even though the score was pretty bad in that one, they're gracious. Well, know a lot about football. Obviously, Big Ten fans do. But then I was talking earlier about Iowa fans at the Holiday Bowl. We're talking about Nebraska fans coming out for bowl game, and then as well as the home and home that we had with them. So we've had plenty of experience with Michigan fans. It's awesome. I can't wait. As much as it's bittersweet, I'm really, there's a lot of great tradition. We're losing with the Pac-12. It's just like, it's like the new girlfriend. You know what I mean? You've had that girlfriend all through high school, and she was awesome. She was great. Lots of memories together, some great moments. But then all of a sudden now you've got a new girlfriend. There's a lot of new things that you have experienced, you want to go check out, and the opportunity is now there for you. So I can't wait. I can't wait to join the Big Ten. I'm definitely going to I'm not going out in late November. I'm telling anybody. I'm sorry. I'm not going to spend my hard-earned money. No offense. You wouldn't either, to go hang out in like freezing temperature and sit in a hotel. But
that's exactly the game Mark will send you for.
They better have a really good tailgate and a lot of heaters. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Thank you very much for having me on.
You're welcome. Well, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up. I don't have any more callers coming in, but we do have a show coming up for you next Sunday with Rick and myself. Trojan Conquest Live. Please come check us out for that. Tons of stuff. I'm putting some stuff up if you guys are interested. I'm going to break up the Anthony Munoz article or interview that already has. It's already been split into chapters, so you could check out. Just look at the different chapters, see just so you want to hear about Anthony Munoz. Just an amazing human being and a great interview. We'll also have Matt Zemek coming in next Monday to meet with Mark and do the show. They always do Trojan Live on Monday, 8:00 Eastern. So yeah, 8:00 Eastern, 5:00 here on the West Coast. So you guys, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Really excited about joining the Big Ten. Thank you so much for being here. All you guys in the chat have been awesome. Really appreciate all your questions. Please feel free to leave a comment. Let me know, what game do you think USC is? So as far as you fans out there, what is the stadium you're most interested in going to as a Trojan fan? Or if you're not a fan of USC, what team or what stadium you think that they'll enjoy the most. Go ahead and leave us a comment. Appreciate all your comments. Till we see you guys next time. Thank you and fight on.